Okay, people. This is my next video of the day, and then I'm not doing any more after this. It's a news flash. As if, right? I am converting over the video that I had just done. So in the meantime, I have been informed that Edgar is moved out. He found it to be quite irrational, I guess you can say, on my part, where when it came to, okay, it's all related to this rent situation, people. Last year, whenever it was, my landlady raised the rent by $50. She asked me, how much do you want to pay? And I said, well, $50, because the last time I did a rent increase, it was $100, I think. Right? So I said $50. And when Edgar moved in, I wanted $575 for that room. But I think I've already mentioned it. Mark Kane was advocating, oh no, you know, just give it to him for $5, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I settled for $5, and I said, okay. And then along came but I had already got that $100 increase, people. Okay? So I covered the cost of that because my son's rent didn't go up. Mine did, but theirs didn't. And I was losing money. If you want to, like, look at it in terms of, like, I could get $575 for that room. And, whatever. Edgar moved in at $500. And then, within the year or whatever it was, Mrs. Gill wanted more money. So, I don't know. Maybe it was $50. She raised it. And then she wanted more money, and I gave her, she wanted another $50 to make it $100. And then that's when I went to the boys and said, look, you know, she wants more money, you're going to have to pay $25 more, because I've already covered the last one. Right? Andre, can you turn that down just a bit, please? Okay? I don't want to have to talk over it. And then, okay, yeah. And then after we started giving her the extra $50, within a few months, she came back and said it wasn't enough. Right? It's that boiling frog moment. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want? Oh, well, you know, you tell me. And I like I said, I know what she's doing, people. She's looking on Craigslist. She owns other houses. She knows what she can get for this house. Right? So I discussed it with my son and Edgar downstairs. You know, I tell him, right? And like, Tisha's already paying $575. Right? So, what do you call it? You know, we discussed it. Everybody agreed that, you know, come September or whatever it was this month, around this time, everybody agreed that we had to do something. So the agreement was, and it was mainly my son that came up with this idea, because we had just, like a few months prior, started paying, the boys just started paying the extra $25. So they didn't want to start paying right away. That's why my son chose September. And he just rounded off at $2,000 because, you know, they're like this, that, and I'm like, no, you know, she wants a little higher than that, you know, blah, blah, blah. So months and months and months ago, it was already known that the rent was going to go up to $2,000 based on what was going on for that week while we were trying to figure out how much we should give her and how it was going to be given. The only thing is, nobody agreed as to how much they were going to pay. We just agreed that the rent should go up to $2,000. And that when it came closer to September, 6 months later or whatever it was, I'd have to go into my receipts, right? You know, then we'd start giving her that money. Okay, so now it's time, right? And like for the last month, and I told this to my son when he informed me that Edgar moved out. I said, because what happened was, when my son came upstairs and told me that Edgar's not paying that money, that $600, and my son doesn't want to pay that $600, right? That it's not legal, that the landlord is doing this, blah, 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 right? And I went downstairs and had a fucking hissy fit. Because it's not like they didn't know this was coming. And a month prior to it coming, I did remind Edgar that the rent was going to go up. But because it was a touchy subject, right? You know, and there's all this tension in the house, in one way or another, right? With, you know, the kitchen being done, and, right? And the bathroom still whatever, and I have to finish the tiles, that's all. That's the only thing that has to be done. Just that little spot there and put on the hardware. Right? And Edgar said he was going to help with the kitchen. And then when it came time to do the kitchen, because Edgar's a carpenter, you know, he just kind of was nowhere to be found. And then Marcane was going to do the kitchen. And, you know, and just, you know, shit in the garage that I have to put up there. And just whatever it is. I mean, the excuse was... for moving out was because when I went downstairs after I was informed that they weren't going to pay it, and I was told to go take it to court, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it to court, right? As if Mrs. Gill wants to take it to court, right? I mean, like, this is a mutiny all over again, right? I just went downstairs and had a hissy fit. I told him, like, you know, a month ago, I already warned you. You knew. You were there when this conversation started 6 months ago, right? I warned you last month that the rent was going up. I talked to you 3 weeks ago, you know, less than 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago. I came to your car and I told you it's going to have to be $600 in order to cover this $200 rent increase. And, you know, you hummed and hawed and whatever, and then at the last minute, you know, 3 days before rent, or 4 days before rent, it's a fucking mutiny, and you're not paying it. And you got my son on that bandwagon, right? And she's expecting it, because that's what we've been telling her for months. So of course I'm going to fucking rampage. Edgar is like family. My son has known Edgar since freaking Brooks was a kid. So it's not like, you know, he's a stranger, right? You know, there was no landlords and Tenancy Act branch lease and all this other shit. He moved in to help out his friend, and he wanted to get on his own, right? And he was allowed to have his dog, and nobody bothered him, right? He didn't steal from us, and nobody stole from him. So it's been pretty peaceful around here for the most part, except for, you know, a few annoyances in terms of, like, you know, like I have to do that wood, people. But, you know, if I can't work outside under the rafters, how am I going to get it done? Right? The only reason I've been saving that wood in there is to do those rafters. That's the only fucking reason. Right? I brought a door home from the little house, the door that Julian ripped apart, people. I will take a fucking video of that door, okay? Julian never fucking replaced it. He was supposed to, but he never did, right? Shimei asked him to, but he never did. So when they were moving out of that house, like when the little house was coming to an end, I measured the door there, and that door is like just a 1/4 inch too big for the door frame downstairs. Outside of that, and that's just along the beam, so you can chisel off a 1/4 inch or do something and, you know, fit that door in there, and then this way nobody has to pay for one, because it's Julian's fucking handiwork. He's the one who literally ripped that door apart, people. Okay? That was in 2016 or whenever that was. I can't remember. It could have been in fucking 17. Who knows? Point is, that's his handiwork. And he never took the time to repair it, just like when he was throwing rocks at windows and shit. Right? He broke the garage window. He never repaired that either. Because he used to threaten to smash out all my windows, people. So, just so that the point would hit home, he smashed out the one window in the garage that he never fucking repaired. My landlady repaired that. Right? So, you know, anyway, so now everybody's in panic mode. And, you know, my son's like, and I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Go apologize? Right? For saying that you said you were going to do this months ago, and now that it's here, you don't want to, and you want to fuck it over with my landlady, with me, where I get kicked out because you don't want to pay rent when you agreed that you were going to pay extra, right? You didn't say you were going to do it by the books. I told my son he just needed an excuse to move, right? And I'm not putting him down. You know, because if it wouldn't be this, it would be something else. If you're going to be held emotionally hostage to somebody that's just going to jump the boiling pot, right? That quick, then I told my son it would be just a matter of time before it would be something else. And then before you know it, you're living your life around that person's needs because you never know when they're going to fucking abandon you, right? Because that's the threat now, right? So it's just as well that he goes. Because if he stays, well, yeah, if he stays, and, you know, I'm not that he won, because in the end, my son did the responsible thing, apologized to my landlady for being hasty, and I guess you can say naive, right? And hopefully he learned a valuable lesson when dealing with landlords, because at some point he's going to have to deal with landlords on his own, right? And Edgar just needed an escape route to get the hell out of this place, because maybe he's outgrown it and he's got a better place to go, or maybe he went back home to his mother, because I know he was going to put a sink in for her. So he has a relationship with his mother. So maybe his mom needs him or something, and he didn't know how to tell Marcane that, you know, he had to move out. So he took the first thing that was, you know, available. Because if it just took someone to holler at him and tell him to grow fucking up, you know, or if you don't like it, yeah, then move, and he don't like it, he can move. Well, he chose to move, and I'm not mad at him, people. I'm not, because he's a good guy, he's a hard worker, he stays out of trouble, right? He's smart, you know, he's loyal to his mom and his family, right? And I don't know what his relationships are like with his brother and with his father, but I know he's fond of his mother. And, you know, he paid his rent, right? Didn't steal, didn't do damage, nothing. So are we losing a good tenant? Well, yeah, we are. And it's really unfortunate that it had to come to this, because honestly, financially, I'm not in a position to handle it. But on the other hand, and this is why I'm doing this video, we know that I've inherited 2 children and that I'm still kind of in denial. Right? One with a disability yet, right, that's going to require more space as he grows. And we're talking ceiling hoists and those kind of things. So eventually I'm going to have to leave this house. It's just a matter of time. If I'm going to have Amari with me, at some point I'm going to have to leave. I don't have to leave yet, but at some point I'm going to have to. So, while I'm here though, you know, I need a little more room because the house is too small, and I've been here for a long time. And long story short, you know, everybody's in a panic, and I'm telling my son, don't panic. I'll cover it. I'll just cover the $575, no problem. Or $550. He paid his last month's rent. He gave my son $550 cash for me to give to my landlady this month, but he's moved out. So from my understanding, the room Shimei's room downstairs is empty, or it will be empty. He's not living here for not another day. So that's fine with me, because now I have a room, people. And Shimei's room is a fair size. And, you know, with us discussing Tisha moving out, the big debate was, well, you know, what are we going to do with that room? I've been asking to turn it into a storage room because I want to clear out Uncle John's room with the craft stuff. You know, I want to get into my fabrics, people, that are in my bedroom, on my bed. I sleep on the couch, by the way, if you're wondering where I sleep. Pretty much. But I've got some really nice fabric, people, that I haven't sewed for 10 years. Well, a little less than that. And I want to teach Tisha a few things, right? I was going to do that with Shimei too, right? So anyway, I think what we're going to, and this is what I want to do, because even though if Tisha would have moved out, her room would have been rented by somebody that the boys know, right? That was already in discussion. And it wasn't because, you know, my son said, well, we need the money, you know, we got to rent out the room and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, but I need to, like, need storage. I need to sort out, you know, things. And, you know, I need to make more space upstairs. And it just makes more sense. And putting it, you know, so blah, blah. And so, you know, the last impression was if Tisha moved out, we were going to rent the room to somebody that could live, coexist. It would have been a man cave. That's what it would have happened. It would have turned into a man cave. But now that Edgar's moved out and the needs of Andre and Amari are changing and I need more room, what I'm going to do, people, is I am going to turn Shimei's room into a /storage sewing room. Because I have desks down the hall here that have sewing machines on them that I don't use because shit just piles up on top. Not that I have time to sew. I kind of like them because I'm kind of like Uncle John. I walk like Uncle John used to do this. That's one reason why I have a lot of this kind of stuff, because Uncle John was blind, so he'd always, right? You know, you hang on to the stove, you walk, you hang on to the counter, you hang on to this. It was his eyeing, you know, to see, right? Versus walking down through an empty hall, he had something to, and with his bad legs, he had something to brace himself. So my kids, they kind of grew up with things lining the wall, and it really started with Uncle John. And then, but now that I'm older, I do it too. But with Amari getting bigger, right? It's like, well, how are we going to move him through the house? How am I going to, you know, lift him, do this, do that? So, Andre had a really good idea. I can buy a little, what do you call that? Those little fold-up strollers for the inside of the house. And it's just for inside, nothing else.
Wait, what? Whose idea was that again?
That was your idea.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's right. And then when he's in the living room, oops, go, you don't need to listen. When he's in the living room and it's time to put him to bed, versus me carrying him, especially if there's nothing in the hall, people,
You just push him.
I can just push him in his little stroller. Right? So, of course, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to move this, I need to move that. You know, I'd have to move probably this right here, at least this one. And I have no place to put it. So, of course, I'm bugging Tisha to move out, right? Well, you need to move so you can take some of this stuff, because if your sisters were around, you know, I would have gave it to Sierra, or I would have given it to Shimei when Shimei moved out, right? You know what I mean? That's what parents do. Well, that's what I want to do anyway. That's what I wanted to do anyway. But it never happened. So this stuff is still kind of here. So I've been kind of bugging Tisha to think about moving out so she could take these desks with the sewing machines, and, you know, she can have a few roasting pans or whatever it was that I was going to give to my girls, because I had 3 of them and now I've only got basically 1. Because Sierra will never have her own functioning house, right? That won't happen. So if I take over Shemai's room, this is what will happen. Obviously, I'll be with no money. That's the first thing. Anything that I might have is gone. Right? But then on the other hand, you know, Andre is getting older and he kind of needs his own room. Sure, he plays in Uncle John's room, aka, you know, the playroom. But I think maybe that room should be turned into Andre's room, like his room. I don't know if he's listening. He doesn't know yet. Right?
My playroom?
You see? Ears. Take out the freezer that's in there. Put it down in Shemai's room. Right? We'll still call it Shemai's room. A.K.A. the sewing room, storage room. Right? And clear out a lot of the fabric that is my room. And that's going to be some fun videos with that one. Trust me. I got some nice fabric, people. And I told Tisha, if we do it this way, then I can sort out my fabric, right, into the way it should be. And then once it's sorted out, we can take, like, you know, you just need a small little corner for a desk with a sewing machine and a desk with a serger. And you're good to go. I can put a lot of my food storage in there because the wall faces north, which is good because you want the north wall because then things stay colder. Which means, you know, I can clear it out of Uncle John's room because I have a batch in there that I can never get to, people, because it's buried behind bins full of either Andre's Lego or craft bins. Right? So if I move those bins downstairs, at least the craft ones, right? Then I can get into that cupboard, get that food out of there. Andre can have the cupboard, and the food can go against the north wall.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on my phone to play with my Lego, okay?
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. Is just that's a $500,
In 5 minutes.
$50 increase in rent for me, with CIBC Bank breathing down my back. Right? And, you know, this is like starting all over again with a family, right? There's a reason why I was up to $40,000 in debt at one point. Right? And I brought Uncle John and I down to, I guess it was, I don't know, down to the last 3 major bills. And that's when his sister decided to steal his money. So I never got to pay off that debt load that I accumulated over the years of looking after Uncle John as I raised the kids. Because at one point, Uncle John's income was, you know, not very much. And in order to raise a family and live in houses and those kind of things, or be cut off of welfare, you know, I went into debt. Well, it looks like I'm kind of like going in that direction again, because once I start covering the difference, you know, I don't know. I'm not, my son looking at me, and I'm like, don't worry. Like Uncle John would say, don't worry. You know, you got to do what's right, and that's the right thing to do. You know, like I said, Andre's getting a little bigger. He needs a little more room. And, you know, Amari is, you know, needs, or like they want to give, what do you call it? A stand-up chair. Oh, it's not a chair. It's a stand-up device to help him to stand for 10, 15 minutes a day. Right? And, you know, that takes up a fair amount of space. So, you know, Tisha is running around having panic attacks, getting mad at me for having things. Not that, and it's not that she's mad at me for having things. She's mad at me because of the outside pressures that come around from other people that expect things to be done the way they want them to be done and whatnot. So anyway, and how I know she's not mad at me for having things, because today she raided Andre's toys for toddlers and took a whole bunch with her so that when she goes visits her boyfriend, little May has Dupo blocks and all those things and dinosaurs and whatever, right? So Alea May has like 2 sets of toys. She's got 1 set here and 1 set when she goes to go visit her dad. And it didn't cost Tisha nothing. The only thing I asked Tisha is, well, when you're bored of them and you don't want them anymore, don't throw them out. Just give them back to me and we'll put them in storage. Because maybe in 5 years from now, or whatever, you might have another kid and you're going to want those toys back. Why buy if you don't have to? So, hopefully she'll give them back when Alea May runs out, if she hasn't had another child by that point. She says she doesn't want to have one, but that's the thing about women. We tend to get pregnant even when we don't want to. So, you know, there's a cost to having abortions, and then there's a cost to not having them. Not having them can get you murdered, like you know, if you have them, I should say, it can get you murdered, like Shimei. Not having them, you know, if you go with abortion and that type of shit, that's not good for you either. So, I'm glad Shimei had Amari. At least she got to be a mom for a little while and had that experience to be a mom and to love your baby. So in the meantime, I think that would be the best thing for me to do, is to just take Shimei's room and keep it as Shimei's room, Auntie Shimei's room, just like it's Uncle John's room. Well, it won't be Uncle John's room anymore. Once everything's out of there, it will definitely become Andre's room. Initially, that room used to be Tisha's room. The only reason it became Uncle John's room is because when Joan went to long-term care, Uncle John couldn't be by himself downstairs. Right? I had to be available to him in case he needed me. So he came upstairs and Tisha went downstairs. That's how it happened. Right? And it happened pretty much at the same time in the beginning year of January of 2013. None of the girls, not Shimei nor Tisha, wanted to go downstairs. They didn't want to give up their rooms. But they had to. Tisha gave her room up for Uncle John, and Shimei gave her room up for Andre. And now, Andre needs his own room again, because he's getting to be a big boy. He's growing. And it'd just be better for him. Because then he can work on being his best friend and have his own space. Right? Take pride in something, you know? And then Amari will stay in his mom's room, Shimei's room. And since I have that extra storage room now, I can take some things out of there and open up that room. So that's what's happening. Can't be afraid to face the future. I don't know where I'm going to come up with $575. But, you know, that's what happens when you have kids. Right? You know. So, anyway, I'm going to go rinse my hands, turn this off, and then I'm just going to upload it, because that's all I got to say. I'm not even halfway through this. I'm just going to work on this for the night, and then probably cook them, and then cool it, and then put it in the fridge, and deal with it tomorrow. So hold on a minute.
You done?
Nah, just still on though. I'm moving slow. I'm tired.